First of all, you're going to have an opportunity to do a little bit of aerobics. We have Cheryl Little from the University of Huntsville here, University of Alabama here in Huntsville, and Cheryl Little and Emily Libhart are going to be just giving you a little hint of what's coming up in the future and doing some aerobics. We also have Barbara Johnson that's going to talk further about our health, and she's a nutritionist, and she's going to be talking. She's from Alabama A&M as an instructor there, and we'll be meeting her a little bit later. Also, we're very delighted to have from the Chamber of Commerce the chairman, Morris Anderson. You may know him as the chairman of the board of First American Federal here in Huntsville. He's also going to be talking about the Jetplex and Huntsville 2000, a lot of exciting things that are coming up here in Huntsville. Later, you will have an opportunity to meet Linda Lowe again and some of the things that she is doing. And from the Women's Group Conference is Sherry Sensabaugh and Brigitte Griggs from Germany. They're having a juried art show. And later, we will hear Randy Young and Jim Bohannon singing for you. So now let's just go to Emily and Cheryl and learn a little bit about how to keep our body healthy.
I'm Emily, and this is Cheryl Little. She's my aerobic instructor at the University of Arkansas. About 2 months ago, my mother, the University of Alabama, I'm from Arkansas. My mother signed me up for this aerobics class, and let me tell you, I am not naturally a person to exercise. I was so distraught about it. I just didn't know if I could make it. You know, oh, Lord, help me. You know, I've never exercised in my life. This is so, just seemed like it was such a steep mountain to climb. I could go win the lost for the Lord, but when it comes to exercising, it just wasn't me. And I took it at the University of Alabama, Cheryl, and you are my instructor. Why don't you tell us a little bit about aerobics, what basically it is and how it's different from, say, other types of exercises?
Aerobics means with oxygen, and it's an activity that helps improve those systems in your body that are responsible for the transportation of oxygen. It helps improve your heart. Will help you decrease your body fat. It'll make you feel better about yourself. Since I've been exercising, doing aerobics, I sleep better, I think better, I feel totally better about myself.
I know that I feel better. How long have we been doing the aerobics for the university now?
A year and a half.
You've been doing it a year and a half. I've been doing it about 2 to 3 months. Yeah. And I've noticed a drastic improvement in the way I feel. I feel sharper in the mornings when I get up, and I do need less sleep than I used to need. One thing that I'd like to bring out, in the body of Christ, we emphasize a lot of the spiritual things, and we believe in healing and all these different areas. A lot of times we don't emphasize nutrition and health and exercise enough, and I really believe that the Lord does want us to take care of our body. Things like smoking and overeating and those sort of things. I really believe that when we are to bring our body in control, that we are to make it a total control over everything. For me personally, eating is probably one of my worst, if you want to call it, sins. It's the thing that is the hardest for me to keep under control. If you would like to get some advice or some help with maybe eating or weight, how to start exercising, why don't you give us a call here today, and we would just love to show you a program or to lead you to someone that could show you a Christian program. The program that you're involved in, don't they actually have it's actually a Christian aerobics program? One of the instructors does do the Christian teaching? Yeah. All right. Well, why don't you just go ahead and show us? We're going to actually do some aerobics today. Now remember, she's the instructor, not me. I'm just the follower, so watch her. And we're going to do some aerobics for you today.
So we just had a lot of fun, and I'm not breathing quite as well as they are, but we have with us Barbara Claire Johnson, who is from the Alabama A&M. She is is a person, she teaches nutrition there. She is a graduate of Auburn University and has her master's from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. She is a person that's makes frequent appearances on radio and television here in the United States and also in Montreal. She is currently the assistant professor in food and nutrition at the Division of Home Economics and responsible for teaching 6 to 8 courses a year. She's also going to have an opportunity to go to Russia with a nutrition group. Barbara, welcome to Channel 58 Big Two Network. And Barbara, you have one thing that I think that that I need to learn more about after we see all the aerobic exercises they were just doing, the dietary guidelines for Americans. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and how you got interested in diet and nutrition?
Okay, well, as Bonnie has said, I have a master's degree, a bachelor's and a master's degree in nutrition, and I am a registered dietitian, which means that not only do you have the degree, but you must have certain experiences in the field as well as pass a certified exam that's national. And then you have an RD after your name. And in fact, in the States, they're trying, in Alabama, they're trying to produce a licensed dietitian now because there are a number of health food individuals and just people who read books who decide they can give nutrition information without the appropriate background. So you need to look for an RD after somebody's name anytime you seek nutrition information. And there are some RDs who are setting up practices in town.
Not like the one that I saw with the card and they had MSU on the end of it. And
yes,
I said,
not quite.
I said, what does that mean? They said, making stuff up. So you need to make sure that it's
Right,
not somebody making stuff up.
And there are
from
several
their own
of those.
Opinions, right?
Exactly.
But they should be a registered dietitian.
Registered dietitian
You're
is
going
what
to get
you
some
want.
nutrition information. But
you
we commoners can learn these dietary guidelines of
yes.
how to keep our body healthy. And even though we may not prescribe to someone else, at least we can internalize
Absolutely.
it ourselves.
Absolutely.
What are some of the biggest challenges that we have in dietary nutrition?
Well, actually, I think they're the same challenges that we have in every part of our life, including our Christian life. Most of us know an awful lot more than we do. And unfortunately, being humans, the way God made us, we look for magic solutions. Everything from, if I just walk down the aisle, everything in my life will be fine from here on, instead of realizing all the process you have to go through as a Christian to maintain a Christian life. And nutrition is the same way. I suspect that I could ask you, in general, what were good things about what would be a good diet. And you could give me some general indications of what a good diet is.
You're great at that. Been on diet for 18 years, haven't lost any weight.
No. Definition of diet is not a weight loss diet.
Oh, okay.
Diet is what you eat.
That's right.
Unfortunately, it's kind of like, do you drink? All of us drink, but we know what do you drink means. It means alcohol, and usually if you're on a diet, that means you're in a weight loss diet. But nutritionists and dietitians know that a diet is what you eat, what you do consume. So if, what did your mother tell you to eat on your plate at home that was good for you?
Save all those kids in Biafra. And I saved so many kids. I gained extra 30 pounds for them.
Oh, dear. Well, most of us are not real happy about the vegetables on our plate, and so Mother always tells you, you need to eat those because they're good for you. And that's still the case. It hasn't changed any. Vegetables are still good for you. And in fact, if you, what the government has done is try to condense the guidelines, dietary recommendations, into some very easy things for people to remember. Now, the problem is when we don't do what we're supposed to do, we tend to feel guilty.
Stressful and overweight.
We still don't do what we're supposed to do, but we feel guilty about it. Now, I'm not necessarily, I don't want you to get in that position, but I'd like to go through some of these guidelines and hopefully point out some things some small changes at least that you can make in your diet now that will lead you in the right direction, that won't hurt too much, and then as you get accustomed to that, then you can do more and more. The first dietary guideline is to eat a variety of foods, and that's number one. Eat a variety of foods.
Not like some national person that's on a liquid diet right now and lost a lot of weight.
Yes. Now, I understand. Well, that's the next dietary guideline. So let me wait till I get there. But the variety of food is for nutrients are in all foods. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, God made all these foods for us to eat, and you know, he kind of planned it. You know how he sort of does that? And if we eat a variety, and it was meant for us to eat a variety. If you read what was in the Bible, there's only restrictions on a few things for the Jews, and those were particularly sanitary reasons. But basically, everything is available for us to eat. And we need to be eating a wide variety. If you go out to a fast food restaurant regularly every single day, you are going to be getting an overabundance of particular things and not enough of others. It's just very well known that vitamin A and vitamin C are very hard to find in a fast food restaurant. And lots of fat and lots of salt and lots of sugar are easy to find there. So, or if you eat the same meal every day for lunch, there's a lady who went on a swordfish diet, and it was a regular weight loss diet, and she ate swordfish every day for 3 months. And she was the first one in the United States that indicated mercury poisoning.
Oh my goodness.
Because it was a cumulative thing. But if she had eaten tuna fish every other day, with the swordfish at least, it would have lasted 6 months. So the variety is very important, not only for the nutrients you get, but to avoid certain other things that are dangerous, that you get too much of. All right?
I know also there's so much talk about cholesterol, and mine is very high. That's coming up. Okay, because I know I basically noted now to eat a lot of oat bran and other things, so you'll help me with that. No white sugar with no white flour.
Well, we'll talk about that. Maintain ideal weight and desirable weight. I think you can probably, in fact, know that that's where most of us are, unfortunately. At least 50% of the females in the United States are on a weight loss diet at some time or another during the course of a year. We could spend a whole program on that, and I do not wish specifically to get in great detail in this, but one of the best ways to determine whether you really are overweight, if your eyes are correct. Sometimes our mind adjusts our eyes, and so it's not quite as clear as it needs to be. But they say if you will get into a room by yourself, close the door, and take off all your clothes and look at yourself in a full-length mirror, that will give you a clue whether you are overweight or not. Not necessarily how you fit your existing clothes, but sort of how you look altogether. And the weight tables are adjustable. Generally, you're not overweight just because you can't get into the outfit you got into last year. That does not necessarily mean that you're overweight, which is kind of one of the indications we use. Now, to get to your information, the third dietary guideline is to avoid too much fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. Now, those are three things that are much confused. Fat in general, most of us know the obvious fat. It's the kind of hidden fats that we're not aware of. First of all, the reason we want to eliminate fat you can't eliminate fat and you don't want to totally, but you want to reduce it. And the reason you want to reduce it is fat has been implicated very heavily in cancer, in almost all forms of cancer, but particularly colon cancer. And I would bet that most of you know someone who has had colon cancer during the last year even. Most of us have run into someone in that condition. And that and breast cancer are also implicated. Fat is implicated heavily in those conditions. If you go to countries who do not have very high fat diets, I just read something about the Chinese in a study they did there. Their diet is 15% fat. Ours is 36 to 37% fat, more than double theirs. The cancer rate, the typical cancer rate in heart disease is just not there. They have other things, but they don't have
And I
those.
understand that also the ones that live here and have lived here all of their life, even though they would have the same heritage, they have the same
As it depends
problems
on
if they are eating the same
exactly
foods.
as they adapt our cultural foods, their cancer rates change. It's very interesting.
So the answer is to cut down on, and in certain types of fat, I understand
Right,
that
that's the
olive
next
oil is better than
That's the next one. That's why it says too
solid
much
fats.
Too much fat and saturated fat. And the easiest way to determine saturated fat is it's solid at room temperature. It's really not very difficult to identify. Margarine, butter, shortening, any of the meat fat, all your dairy fats, all of those. If you haven't already, you should be at least going down to 2% milk. I made the jump to 0.5% in skim milk this summer. And I was surprised. I really enjoyed it.
Now,
and it's not
if
bad.
you go back to, even 2% starts to taste really like thick milk.
Thick and
after you drink the skim milk. But
very definitely.
because mine was over 300, my cholesterol count, I had to bring it down, and so that meant going to skim milk, and then really very little milk and egg yolks.
Right. What the dietary guidelines are meant to do is not to cure, but to prevent. It's an awful lot easier to prevent it from happening and all the medical bills that occur related to that than to try to backtrack. So if we can just begin to cut down and teaching our children, because all of us, the way we eat is based on what our parents brought us up with. That's what we're comfortable with and what we enjoy. My husband is constantly saying, well, why can't they make nutritious food that tastes good? And I'm constantly saying back to him that the reason that certain things taste good to you is because that's the way you were brought up. Other things taste good to me because that's the way I was brought up.
Because you're more French and he's more
Italian.
And he's
more Southern oriented in the types of food. Lots of fat. And then the cholesterol, another just basic rule and very easy to remember, is that saturated fats, the solid fats at room temperature, will raise your cholesterol level in your blood. All right? So the monounsaturates, don't worry about that. Olive oil, canola oil, and all of the oils, anything that's at room temperature is liquid, is better for you than anything that's solid at room temperature. But
just think of the solid as hanging up in your blood vessels, and that the liquid will wash them out
through,
again.
right through, sail right through.
That's the way I think of it
Good.
mentally. So
Good.
Got to put the
need a mental picture like that. We've been
visualizing.
Gary Smalley is talking about mental pictures, and that's the way we present them, and I like that idea. The cholesterol, all you got to remember there is that anything that's an animal product has cholesterol in it and will raise the cholesterol in your blood. Anything that's plant does not have cholesterol in it and will not raise.
And it will actually serve as fiber to remove.
Plant will be more fibrous, right, which is what the next dietary guideline does. But remember that this whole guideline, again, avoid too much fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. If you cut back on your meats, that will really do it. We know we're supposed to be eating less red meat and more fish and poultry, but overall, if you cut back on animal products, you will take care of all three of these in one shot. All right? Easily done.
So you'll just get more fiber by doing that.
And just because you've got to make up the calories somewhere else, you've got to eat something. So you will fill in with the plants, which is the fourth one. Eat foods with adequate starch and fiber. And here's where your carbohydrates, your dried beans, potatoes, and we have just maligned potatoes so badly. I mean, potatoes are fattening, right? Wrong. Potatoes are not the fattening part. What do we do with them? We put sour cream and butter and bacon a little bit on it, and we just kind of dress them up considerably.
Getting hungry already.
If you go down to one of the fast food places and order a nice baked potato, which you think is healthy, and then you put the cheese sauce on it, it can have as much fat in it as the hamburger that you thought you were going to avoid the fat with. So you've got to be judicious, but the potato itself is really quite nutritious. Dried beans, excellent. All the fruits and vegetables are excellent, and they all fit into this increased fiber and increased starch. And if you start cutting back on the meat, you'll want to put dried beans into your diet and more bread products. Fat has, and this is for calorie consciousness, remember this, fat has more than twice as many calories as carbohydrates do. And when we talk about this, eat foods with adequate starch and fiber, that's carbohydrates. When you talk about too much fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, that's fat. So if you will switch the two, you will cut down your calories by half just automatically.
And it's amazing, the next one being avoid too much sugar. Probably all of us as children have eaten frosted cereals. And then perhaps if we didn't, we added a lot of sugar on top and say, oh, you don't have to worry about it, I didn't stir it much. But anyway, you put all the sugar on it. But you know, now that I don't add sugar to cereal, it tastes sweet anyway. It's the things that I didn't.
It's because it has sugar as in its makeup, even if it is not pre-sweetened. If you will look on the ingredients list, which everyone always should do on a regular basis, you will find probably the second ingredient is sugar, even if it is not pre-sweetened.
Corn flakes and then sugar. Oh.
That's right. So the interesting, that's starch. Though now sugar, the next one says avoid too much sugar. That doesn't say cut it out completely. Life would be, not quite as sweet without sugar. And it's not evil. All right? No food is evil. God made all things. It's always what we do with what God made. And sugar is when it takes the place of something. When you have a candy bar for lunch instead of a sandwich and a glass of milk, that's where you get into trouble, when it's taking the place of. But if you've got all your nutrients already in place and you've pretty well covered like you're supposed to the basic four, and you're not overweight, and don't have a weight problem, then sugar is not the difficulty and won't rob your body of needed nutrients like some people will like to say. So it's not that sugar is evil. In fact, the only thing you can specifically tag to sugar is dental cavities. And it's the only thing specifically you can tag to it. Sixth one, avoid too much sodium.
What about sea salt? Is that much better than regular salt?
No.
It isn't?
And to go back to the sugars, honey is no different than regular sugar, white sugar. Don't think that, it has some differences in that it makes your product more moist when you cook with it. But nutritionally, it's equivalent. In fact, a tablespoon of honey has more calories than a tablespoon of sugar, interestingly. But the makeup of them is made up of exactly the same thing. Honey has minimal amounts of nutrients in it. You don't eat honey for its nutrients.
Idea, because I'd always thought that honey was much more
very common thought.
Nutritious than...
Because it's a natural sugar, right? How do you think they took it out of the bees? They had to process it, they pasteurize it, they work with it. The sugar we've got comes from sugar beets and sugar cane. They take it out of the sugar beets and sugar cane and they process it.
So what about the sodium?
Now the sodium.
Sea salt.
Same kind of thing like honey and sugar. Sea salt comes from the sea and is natural. The positive aspect of it is that it does have some extra minerals in it.
The potassium.
Some of the potassium, but not a whole lot. And regular salt has iodine in it, and so does sea salt have iodine in it.
Now we're coming up on the holiday season, and the last one about drinking alcoholic beverages.
Okay. That's a given to me. I usually don't spend much time on that at all, because that's just, if anything can be considered evil, that's pretty close to it. But, a small glass of wine is not, and some people, in fact, some evidence shows that it does improve appetite, and it does help digestion, and we know that Timothy was advised in that direction.
Jesus turned water into wine.
And Jesus drank wine, and I've heard people say, well, that wasn't really wine. But I think in the Middle East you will find, in most other countries where water is in difficulty, that wine is common.
The idea is to be in moderation.
Moderation in all things, and that's what this comes down to, is moderation. If you will look at your diet, if you will sit down and look at what meal you're planning to serve this evening, and look at the butter on the vegetables, the butter on the potatoes, the butter on the bread, and if you had biscuits or cornbread, you have the fat already even in the bread to begin with. And then the meat you make, you select if it's full of fat, and if you don't trim it, and even if it looks lean, believe me, there's fat within it, because it's just the way muscle is made. And then if you fry it, or put a batter on it or some way, you just keep on adding fat just consistently. So all of those things are to be borne in mind.
Hey, I've learned a lot, and it'll be interesting when you go over to Russia, where I understand that some of the people live to be 150 years old in some of those areas. Now, we want to find out. When you come back again from Russia and in your study with the nutrition group, I would love to have you come back, Barbara, and tell us what new things you've learned from them, because there's one thing, they do say that there are areas that they live a long time.
I can tell you, I've read a lot about that. There's several areas in the world that are like that, and we can talk about that.
Well, you want a little hint as to how that can be done?
They lie. Really, that's exactly what they come down to. Now,
they don't always know how old they are.
Exactly.
They just look 150.
No, actually, they look pretty well, but it's very difficult to determine their birth date.
Okay.
And in those cultures, contrary to ours age is a negative. In those cultures, aged people get perks. So it is worth their while to be older.
Oh my goodness.
Now, it's not to say that they're not healthy and not old, because they are, and they do very well. But 140 is stretching it a little bit.
as people are getting older now, my mother's 86, she still goes everywhere, does everything, lives alone, does all of her own things, and so I can see that people are healthy for more and more years now because of, I think that she is one that would
sticks to this.
Yes, follow your plan, your dietary guidelines, and exercise. So there are Americans and all people that are living to be more useful life, longer. And so I'm looking forward to learning more. Barbara, thank you for being with us. Barbara Johnson, who is a director, assistant professor in the Food and Nutrition Department at the Division of Home Economics at the Alabama A&M. I have to watch myself.
I know, two universities in town.
Well, not that, because I lived in Texas and I want to keep saying Texas A&M and Alabama A&M.
Let me put a quick commercial in. We have a dietetics program that gives a 4-year degree in nutrition and dietetics, and also a food service program that we've started, hospitality food systems management, that is geared for restaurants and hotels, and we will be pleased to have you call out with
And I know that you speak a lot of places and do a lot of seminars and about nutrition, so if you'd like to have Barbara Johnson, she hasn't said I can say this, but you can call her and then let her tell me what she wishes I had not said. So, no, we're friends well enough that I can say that.
That's just fine.
Okay. And we want to thank you very much, Barbara, for being here. And let's see what, I see Emily's set up over there to sing, and we want to go to Emily Libhart and hear her songs. Emily?